Good afternoon. Welcome to Euangelion Radio on a Thursday afternoon. It's going to be a short one today because, just want to get a short one in before basic theology tonight at 6:30. I'm going to want to talk to you all a little bit about what we're going to be talking about in basic theology tonight, and that is human autonomy. Why our drive, as it were, I guess, to be free human beings. What does it mean to be free, and how does our freedom relate to the Lord? In what ways does it relate to the Lord? So last week during our lesson, we looked at a church history, right? Specifically history of philosophy and theology throughout the church, and we saw and we noted how it essentially is it's a fight. Philosophy and theology, what the church was fighting against, was essentially a fight against human freedom. What I mean by human freedom, what I don't mean by human freedom is the freedom of people, like to live. Like I in the U.S., I am a free man. I don't mean Christians are fighting against that type of freedom, but rather a freedom of man from God. And that's what philosophy and theology and all that stuff was throughout church history, was a fight. Those who were against God, those who were against theology, it was a fight against the living God for freedom. And we're not live on Facebook, and I have no idea why, and I don't care right now. So it was a fight for freedom of the will, freedom from God, a drive to not be responsible to God. And we saw that in the beginning. It came in the form of Gnosticism. You had to have your own self-knowledge to be saved, secret knowledge to be saved, knowledge of yourself. Justin Martyr, we said how he kind of comes dangerously close to bridging the gap a little too much between Greek philosophy and biblical theology. But he said that the Greeks were Christ-like because they thought according to the Logos, or the reason. And in John chapter 1, verse 1, he says that Jesus is the Logos, the reason. And so he says then, well, wouldn't the Greek philosophers be Christ-like then? But no, they were fighting for human autonomy. We saw in the medieval period, with the lack of persecution and the lack of pressure to be doctrinally sound, the church went off into a little bit human autonomy, and then it was brought back in the Reformation. And then in the Renaissance and Enlightenment period, it dove way far into human autonomy, that we can be separate from God. We don't need God to do philosophy. We don't need God to do thinking. We don't need God to live and move and have our being, as Paul would put it in his letters. So human autonomy is that freedom from God, to be free from God. And we learned that we cannot be free from God. There's no way to be free from God. God is... We need God. That's as simple as we can put it. Or again, Paul, we need God in God we have move and live and have our being. And we pointed out specifically how we need God to understand. And we pointed out two key people, Augustine in the 5th century, I believe, and Anselm, I don't remember what century he was in. But both of them said, we have to have faith to understand. And they said that when other people were saying, you have to have understanding